going on, everybody? Welcome on in, guys, to our CFP Championship preview. Myself, Rick Stambro, Mr. Ian McClintock. Hope you guys are all doing great. My man, it's been a heck of a year covering these college football teams, and we are finally here, the final game of the season. We got one more, guys, so you better enjoy this one. It's going down Monday night, 5:30 p.m. Mountain Time, 7:30 p.m. for y'all on the East Coast. And wherever else you are in the world, don't make me say them all. You know what time the game's at. Here you go. Notre Dame coming in an 8 to an 8.5 point dog, depending where you're looking. Ohio State, sizable favorite here, a little bit more than a touchdown, over under 45.5. Another number we've seen fluctuating a lot. It's been 46.5. It's hit 47 and now 45.5. So a lot of swings going on. So make sure you guys check around your sports books depending on what bets you want. But with all that said, Ian McClintock, let's start here, brother, with the actual matchup. Do you believe this is currently the two teams that are supposed to be here?
I mean, if we're going to play it by the books, then no. It should have probably been Oregon and Georgia by the way of how everybody probably wanted this to work out. They wanted to see the undefeated Oregon Ducks, who had run through everybody, get back to the dance, and then more than likely they would want to see the SEC champ, or at least most of the NCAA and the playoff committee would probably want to see the Big Ten versus the SEC champs go at it against each other. But I think this 12-team playoff, more than anything else, has actually been really, really good for the sport. We've seen a lot of interesting matchups that I really don't think that we probably would have seen otherwise. I mean, you look at seeing Texas versus Clemson in the first round. You have Ohio State playing Tennessee. We don't get to see those every day. And then you see Texas playing Arizona State. You see Notre Dame playing Georgia. You see Penn State playing Boise. Like, where else are you going to find matchups like that anywhere else? It's just absolutely phenomenal to me. I also think that we saw what needs to be fixed in the playoff as well when we get into the 25-26 season. And I'm sure that later on down the road, when it gets closer to the preseason and we get closer to kickoff for that, we'll have more analysis about how all that's going to shake out here between all of that. But to have the number 7 and the number 8 seeds, it's a very interesting story because you and I both, we've been doubting Notre Dame for the longest time, especially ever since that blunder.
Last week.
Last week, yeah, trust me, it made me sick, but it is what it is. But throughout the season, everybody was wondering after Northern Illinois, is this team legitimate? You look at their strength of schedule, it was not eye-popping by any metric. Indiana had a better strength of schedule. You could go look it up. Notre Dame, I want to say they were like 66th, 67th. Ohio State, on the other hand, you looked at how they got to where they were with their 2 losses, one coming from a half yard too short at Oregon, and then the weirdest game in the world that you could ever play as Ohio State. You're getting rid of all your weapons that got you to that point, and then you get into a fight in a phone booth with Michigan, and you lose that. So what does Ohio State do? They go back to what got them to the dance. And Ohio State, they run absolute roughshod through Tennessee on their home field. They use that momentum, scored 34 unanswered points to open up the Rose Bowl against Oregon. So Oregon had no shot of getting back into the game. And then Texas, I think even Texas was pretty close to maybe going the Longhorns' way. There's certain ways that you could play Ohio State. And I think this is going to be one of those games where Notre Dame almost has to dare Ohio State to run. Because if they allowed those outside weapons to go, it just we've seen the writing on the wall. We know exactly how this is going to go down with Will Howard, with Jeremiah Smith, with Cardell Tate, with Emeka Egbuka, with Travion Henderson, with Quinshon Judkins. Notre Dame, you almost have to dare Ohio State to only get in the phone box, stay between the hashes with you, because if you allow that game to get to the outside, it doesn't end well. You look at Notre Dame's run through this entire playoff as well. Notre Dame, they've been having success on the ground, keeping teams limited, playing Notre Dame style of football, 27-17 against Indiana, and then you come out and put an absolute whooping on the Georgia Bulldogs. Yes, they didn't have Carson Beck. It didn't matter. You still kept them in your style of game, and you pretty much did the same after the fourth quarter against Penn State. Ohio State is not those teams, though. So it's very, very interesting to see how these two dynamics will run into each other and how they will really contest against each other. Marcus Freeman's got a whole lot of pressure, but then again, so does Ryan Day.
So we talked about that last week, right? Remember we talked about the pressure and which coach is under it. We said James Franklin. How'd that work out for him? But
Mm.
at this point, you just kind of said Marcus Freeman's got some pressure. Can I ask you what type of pressure you mean? And I only ask that because I think if they lose this game, right, they're not supposed to win. So I don't really see the pressure there. A lot of people didn't think they'd beat Penn State, and they did. Like, I feel like they've already come further, especially for how early he is technically in his coaching career, truly collegiate career, just in general. Do you feel like he's already made it where he's playing with house money? Or when you say there's pressure, what do you mean?
So when I say that there's pressure, I feel like there's just pressure from the outside, from the national medias. The fact that Notre Dame hasn't been able to do anything since Joe Montana was there. I mean, we're going all the way back to 1988 for the last time that Notre Dame has really done anything relevant as far as being able to play in big bowls. And yes, I understand that they have been to multiple national championship appearances. They've been to multiple BCS or New Year's Six games, but they always ended up falling flat. And I think that's where a lot of this outside noise from a lot of the national media coming down on Notre Dame may be coming from, is the fact of, okay, we've seen you get to this point before, and you've always ended up in one way or another just falling short of the mark. Now, I will be the first to admit I need to eat crow because I definitely said that Notre Dame did not belong to be here. They have proven to me otherwise. They definitely do belong to be here. Riley Leonard has done a phenomenal job quarterbacking the Notre Dame Fighting Irish, getting them to where they are. Jeremiah Love has been fantastic as well. So has Jaden Greathouse. These are all probably names I think a lot of people coming into this season probably just saw as maybe a little bit of a misfit type of organization. How is Marcus Freeman going to be able to bring them together? Well, he's been able to do it in the last 3 years. And he's got them on the doorstep of their first national championship since 1988. And I think that's where the pressure is coming from. It's just knowing that, okay, we can do something that we have not done in 36 years. I'm also the first African American coach to get to the national championship game. We may not talk about it in the media, but there is always going to be that little bit of a twinge of pressure there as well. How well do you perform, especially given the circumstances? How well does he perform on that stage? So I think that's where the pressure, at least for Notre Dame, comes from.
Fair enough. Obviously, Ryan Day. I mean, the one question I'm going to ask you about him is if he loses this game, and I need you to come on, brother. Is he really actually? Could we wake up in March and hear Ryan Day fired from Ohio State?
I
Is
know
that
early
really
on,
a thing? Because I feel like we've said that since week one. We said that. We said, oh my God, if they lose week one, he's gone. Then we said, oh, they lose week two. And then we said, oh, if he doesn't get to the national championship, he's gone. He's here now. I think it's hard murdering Oregon, getting it done in a beautiful fashion last week. I got to be honest with you. I don't think it is. I know it's a narrative that the media is running with, but I don't think his head is on the chopping block anymore, personally.
I think he's saved it. I really do believe that because I think coming into this playoff run, coming off of the loss, the way that they lost to Michigan and having those two losses, having those 4 straight years of no Big Ten championships, of no beating Michigan. Again, I've said it multiple times, the pressure of those on at Ohio State, those are 2 of the big 3, but you can erase all of that with a victory here. Now, I'm not saying that a loss here is going to absolutely sink him, but like you mentioned, the run that they've had against the Tennessee Volunteers, putting up 42 points at home against a very game Tennessee Volunteers offense, they absolutely stymied them. Putting up 34 straight points against Oregon in the rematch at the Rose Bowl, and then I mean, it wasn't the greatest offensive performance, but that's probably the most complete defensive performance that I have seen from
I
Ohio
agree.
State throughout this entire playoff run. I'm still waiting for both sides to come together in one solid run. And I think that this would be the time for Ryan Day to have everything come together. And I'm going to say it. I think he has saved his job just with these last 3 games, even if for some reason Notre Dame walks out of here with a 14-point victory. I still think Ryan Day is safe. I think he has done enough over these last 3 games. Getting the Buckeyes to this point has really washed away the stink for lack of a better term, of that loss to Michigan at home.
So I guess the only world that he's in trouble here is if this somehow turns into a 34-10 murdering on national television in front of the entire country. I guess that's really the only thing. And even then, I don't know if he's gone in Ohio State right now. I think obviously he on the hot seat coming into next year, but I feel like he has saved himself. So we're kind of in agreement there on that one. But I know we're going to get into our score projections here in just a minute, but my final question for you, X factors on both sides of the coin here. Let's go ahead and start with Ohio State. Who is your one player, or I guess it could be game plan, that you think they have to follow here?
So I'll do one on offense and one on defense for both teams here. I'll start with Ohio State. I think it's all going to come down to Will Howard. And I know it's stereotypical to look at the quarterbacks, and shocker, I'm going to pick Riley Leonard for Notre Dame's on offense as well. But for Will Howard, he has been so crucial to how this Ohio State offense has been able to run. When he's been able to stay upright, they have been absolutely phenomenal, putting up just dozens and dozens of points at will. And that's when his offensive line, despite the injuries, he has still been able to stay upright. He's got an All-American that was starting at left guard. He's now moved out to left tackle. So his blind side is there. It is protected. That offense has so many different weapons, but they need the man under center to be able to get it to him. So I'm looking at Will Howard. Just continue the great play that you have had so far through these playoffs. It's going to be hard for the Notre Dame defensive front in order to get to him. And then for Ohio State defensively, I think a lot of people would be looking at Jack Sawyer in this game just because of how dominant he was against Texas, coming up AP second team All-American as a defensive end or edge or whatever in the world that you want to call it. I think he is going to be really the linchpin for the defense for Ohio State. And the thing is, you could have picked a litany of different players. You could have picked Caleb Downs for Ohio State. You could have picked JT Tuliopolo for Ohio State, manning that defensive front. And, you know, JT could very well be a viable option, given the fact of how well he has done in the run defense game as well. For Notre Dame, like I mentioned, I think it is going to come down to Riley Leonard. And I really think overall he may be the X factor to the entire game because of his scrambling ability. And if Ohio State is able to contain him, keep him in the pocket, and continue to get pressure on these fantastic quarterbacks, because we've seen him do it to Nico Iamaleava, we've seen him do it to Dylan Gabriel, and just a week ago, we saw him do it to Quinn Ewers and even a little bit to Arch Manning when he was out there on the field for those select plays. It's just going to come down to, can Riley Leonard do enough through the air? Because on the ground, he may only have limited opportunities. He may have to get into a gunslinging fight with Will Howard. I don't know if he necessarily has enough. He's going to need to play out of his mind in order to do that. And then I'm looking at Xavier Watts on the defensive side for Notre Dame. I'm looking at the All-American who's come down with 6 interceptions, and just really being able to see how he does when you have 3 elite receivers coming at you. You're only able to play against 1, maybe 2, depending on what kind of coverage that you are looking at. Eventually, the third receiver, whether it be Smith, whether it be Ibuka, whether it be Tate, it's going to be very interesting to see how he rallies that secondary, that back 7, and trying to contain that Ohio State firepower.
Oh man, I am liking what you're saying here, and I'm pretty much right there with you on every single one of those guys. I don't think I disagree with you. I mean, obviously you said Sawyer. There could have been a few other names I'd throw in that mix, but that just shows you how important the guys are across that defense. So obviously him coming off the game sealing play, if you would, obviously kind of puts him in the spotlight. It was a phenomenal play. I'm sure that boy was gassed at the end of that play, but hey, he got it done. He didn't gas out. He didn't fumble. He didn't fall down. He executed. And so I'd have to say that he is definitely an X factor here in this game. But with all that said, my man, let's talk lines in this game. Once again, we're going to keep putting the fluctuation out there, guys. 8 to 8.5 on the spread, 45.5 to 46.5 on the total. So Ian, you can kind of play with any of those numbers right now with us being a few days out from this game. But let's start here with the spread. Notre Dame plus 8.5 points in this game. This is a national championship, my man. Are you going to leave 8.5 points on the board?
I'll leave them on the board. I'll leave 10 on the board. I'll leave 12 on the board. I'll leave 14 on the board.
What?
That is how confident I am that the Ohio State University is going to come away victorious in the game. Look, Marcus Freeman, he is a fantastic football coach. He knows what the Fighting Irish are. He plays to their really to their strengths very well. They've never been flashy. They have the occasional deceptive look from them. Special teams, they are a very run heavy team. They want to pound the ball in the run game. They want to eventually set up the pass plays, and we might be looking at tight end Mitchell Evans maybe having a nice pop up game. But the good news is, if you're a fan of the Buckeyes, that's exactly what the Buckeyes want you to do defensively. They want you to keep it inside. And my Lord, if that defensive front can get home, which I really do believe that they can do, it's just not going to be a fun day for Notre Dame. I do believe overall, coaching wise, I'm going to give the edge right now to Ryan Day, just for the time being until proven otherwise. Offensively, Ohio State has more weapons. Defensively, Ohio State once again has more weapons. Who has got more momentum right now? I still think it's Ohio State. Who's been more battle tested? It's been Ohio State. You're looking at everything. Oh, and who's also been here and dealt with the pressure before? It has been that team in the scarlet and gray. It has not been Notre Dame for quite a long time. Riley Leonard, Jeremiah Love, Jaden Greathouse. It has been a phenomenal run for you. Marcus Freeman, you are going to do great things, whether you choose to stay at Notre Dame or if you want to address the rumors of you going to the NFL. Fantastic. You can do that. But until I see it otherwise, I have to go with what I've seen in the past. I have to trust that Chip Kelly's offense will continue to do what they've done. I trust that Ohio State's offense will get off the boat and absolutely rock to begin this game. And just like they did in 2014, when Ohio State was the first team to win the 14 playoff, Ohio State will be the first team to win the 12-team playoff. Here, 1 decade later, I am taking Ohio State 34, Notre Dame 17.
17 going double them up in the natty. I like that. All right. Well, hey, I want to point out something, guys. Ian's article, sports4media.com. You see the website there on the bottom of the screen. Once again, we got all the college games you could possibly think of, every NFL game for the weekend, college basketball, NBA, NHL, UFC. The list goes on up on the website now, so make sure to check it out. But on his college football playoff article here for the natty, this is it. You guys can go ahead and get in there. He breaks down a lot more in depth of a lot of the stuff we're talking about here, really gets into the nitty gritty. If you're a big sports bettor or you're just a big football fan, you're definitely going to want to check this out. But with all that said, I'm not going through this whole article right now, but I'm going to take something right out of the top of it, my man. You said the last meeting in 2023, which, hey, I know it's 2025, my brother, but 2023 wasn't very long ago, okay? In the fall of 23, by the way. You see the score, 17-14. I'm sorry, but I would argue that, at least in my opinion, that Ohio State team was, I'll say as good. I'll say as good. I won't say better. I'll say as good. And then Notre Dame was definitely not as good in 2023. So with that said, I'm a little bit surprised that you're going with such a big spread here in this game. They have a little bit of film on each other from recent times. Obviously, like you said there, Ohio State 13-2 this year. Notre Dame 14-1. And I get it. They don't have the same schedules, but I'm just saying, I think this game might be a little bit closer than you're making it sound here. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go against my better judgment in this game. And I'm still going to fade the spread. I'm going to go with about a 10-point win here for Ohio State. But 17, I can't quite get there with you. I'm thinking somewhere between 7 and 10. Could they bank the cover? I mean, yeah, I guess, they could bank the cover here. But for me personally, I'm thinking more of like a 27-17, 31-23. Like I'm just thinking a little bit more kind of in that realm there. So for that reason here, I'm not a Notre Dame guy, right? And I jumped on him for 1 week and they cashed a ticket for me. And now I'm being a little bit too nice to him because I got Ohio State winning this football game. But I just feel like everyone is so high on Ohio State that 8.5 points in a national championship might just be the tiniest touch too big. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm still going to lay the 8. I'm still going to lay it, but I do think 17 might be a bit of a stretch unless it's like a pick six, with 45 seconds left and then they get this late big cover. Sure. But I think in the fourth quarter, we're at least looking at a football game at that point. I think that they're in range. They won't get there, but they're in range. So give me Ohio State minus the 8 points as well. And then once again, 45.5, 46.5, depends which way you're leaning. Where are you going on the total?
With the total, like I said, I think 34-17. I think this game goes over. Again, I can appreciate what Xavier Watts has been able to do for the Notre Dame defense, but he's one man. You cannot stop 5 players with one person by themselves. Notre Dame, you did a fantastic job there in the fourth quarter, but let's be honest, Ohio State's offense is a hell of a lot better than what Penn State's offense was able to put on the field. James Franklin, what hasn't been said about his coaching ability in big games? Ryan Day, he's at least made it to the big game multiple times. I just feel like this is just one of those teams. They're slowly getting on a destiny run, and it's a feel-good story for Notre Dame, but I think this is just going to be a little bit too sweet there for the Buckeyes of Ohio State. Their offense from 2023 was all right. I will say that. I'm not going to go as far as saying that they were nearly as good as this offense is this year with Chip Kelly at the helm. He has just absolutely unlocked something special there in Columbus, and it's going to be a field day with scarlet and gray raining down out of the sky.
Folks, as you see here at the bottom of Ian's article, our crew at the Sports Forum has agreed on 30-20 Ohio State to get this done. So that is the cover here for us. Once again, it's striking distance. You know what I'm saying? You never know what's going to happen at the end, but I'm with you there. Also, it also puts the team on the over, obviously, at the 45.5 number. So over for our team, over for Ian, cover for the team, cover for Ian, cover for me. However, I'm stuck on this total because here's the one thing I'm thinking, right? Genuinely, like genuine question. What is the floor for Notre Dame in points? Because I wanted to say it was 17, and so I was leaning towards the over. But the more I look at it, I think the floor might be 13.
Honestly, I don't see how Notre Dame scores more than 20 points. I really do not see a path for
Well, what is the lowest that you think they score?
I'd say 10.
Yeah.
I think that they're absolutely going to be outclassed on the field. And again, this is no disrespect to what Notre Dame has been able to do because they've been able to show up and absolutely blow the doors off of just about everybody until they got into the college football playoff. They ran into a very good Indiana team. We saw what they did against Georgia. Obviously, a lot of outside extenuating factors in that game. And then you draw Penn State. You were down by, 14 points going into the fourth quarter. And then you had a miracle run. Penn State floundered that, I will say that. But I never saw anything that was really lighting it up for me to say that Notre Dame really sticks out to me, that they have the ability to be able to run with the teams of Ohio State, of Texas, of Oregon. It's just not in the cards for them, at least not right now.
This is where I'm struggling is I feel like if it doesn't get there, it's obviously because of Notre Dame, right? And so, all right, final question. What is the floor for Ohio State?
27.
Is it 20?
27.
Floor.
Yes. 27 is the floor for this team. When they are running at, here's the thing, when they are running at full octane, they're top 5 in scoring offense and number 1 in scoring defense. There's a 23.5 point disparity between the two. This just doesn't go away in one weekend. We've seen these teams play each other in the past. Yes, the teams were different. The coaches were different. The players were different. Everything was different. But you look at what Ohio State has done in this 3-game run. 42 points, 41 points, 28 points. Shoot, again, if Notre Dame can play them like Texas played them, then Ohio State, this game will be closer. It could very well end up being a 27-17 game. But in the end, there is still no path for me unless Ohio State absolutely bricks it in the first half, that Ohio State does not come out of this game holding that trophy.
See, so where I'm stuck is my number I have in my head for Notre Dame is 17. And the number I have in my head for Ohio State is either 30 or 27. And I can't. And so obviously that's the fluctuation of the over under, right? So I mean, hey, shout out to the odds makers. You did a decent job. However, it's the national championship. I'm hoping for a lot of fun, a lot of love, a lot of great things happening. So give me the over in this game as well. I'm going to go 47 total points. I'm going to go 30-17 here as my score projection keeps changing. It's still right there for me, but I got to find a way at this over under. And I just feel like to say under 45.5 points in this game, when you just pointed out Ohio State could put up 40, bro. Like they could put up 40 in this game. So I can't go under at that point. So we're both on the under. We're both on the cover. The whole crew is on all those picks as well. And I haven't talked to one person on our team that is taking Notre Dame on the money line to pull this game off. Maybe it's going to be the shock of the century, my man. I don't know, but it sure feels like this is the Buckeyes game to lose. One more time, guys, at the Sports Forum on YouTube. Make sure to give us a subscribe, click that like button, do all that fun stuff. Got a ton of stuff coming for you there. sportsforummedia.com to check out the article. My man, anything else you want to leave the people with here before we go enjoy the final game of the year?
I know. It's been a fun ride. It has been
really
an
quick,
absolute
though,
fun ride.
Doesn't it feel like week 0 when we had so much to prepare for? Really wasn't very long ago. Like
it really wasn't. I mean, especially when we went through October and November, where between college football and the NFL, there were 55 straight days of football. If I could just have that every day, I mean, it's my personal heaven. But just to see the culmination of all the hard work and the determination of all these teams, it finally comes down to one final game in Atlanta, Georgia. It's a nice feather in the cap for the 24-25 season. I think we've learned a lot with the playoff. We've learned a lot with these new conferences as well. It's going to be a very fun offseason. Players are going to be transferring. Coaches are transferring. Coaches are retiring. Bill Belichick is now in college football. So many stories. And that's why I think college football is
he's the 5th favorite to get an NFL coaching job. So who knows at this point, bro? I don't know.
I don't know about that. But it's so enamoring and it's so enveloping. College football is just one of those sports, and it's probably the reason why I love it the most, because just because the season's over doesn't really mean that the season's over. There's always so much more to talk about.
Well, it's just starting, brother.
Yeah, I mean, shoot, we got the Senior Bowl on the other side, we got the draft, we got spring ball, and then we got training camp, we've got transfer portal news, and just so much more happening. It just stinks that it all has to come to a quote-unquote end on Monday night, and it's just it's been a fun season. Definitely did not expect to see these two teams, but there's a reason why we play the games. They're not played on paper. So Notre Dame, Ohio State, congratulations to the victor. Whoever comes out, best team win.
May the best team win. And guys, we will be live, by the way, on Monday. You already know, before this game goes down. So make sure to tune into that. We're going to go live about an hour before the game starts to give you guys our final predictions when the lines finally close, make any last adjustments to our picks, et cetera, et cetera. So make sure you're following us at Sports Forum CO on Twitter and Instagram. We'll announce when we're going live. And then once again, we'll be live here on YouTube. So make sure to check that out as well. Ian McClintock, Riggs Tamburo. This has been Pickin' Winners. Good luck to you guys in the national championship, and we'll see you on Monday night.